Network. I am one of your hosts, Aaron Freeman, and today I am joined by none other than former NFL quarterback Fred Smoot. You can find him now covering the Redskins at Team 980 down in the D.C. area on the radio. Welcome to the show, Fred.
Hey, thank you for having me, man. Thank you for having me. A great week to have me also.
Yes. Well, Fred, we had you on last year when the Falcons played the Vikings. That was a fun show. So we decided, hey, Fred spent a lot more time in D.C. than he did in Minnesota, and let's see what he has to say about this Redskins team.
Man, you know what? This Redskins team, and I always tell people, man, I build a team from the inside out, first of all. It's all about the fat boys. If I don't smell bacon, I usually don't smell no wins. This team took a 3-4 year plunge, and they went everybody from Trent Weirs to Sheriff to on the defensive side, just going down to Alabama and having a shopping spree. And right now, we can win playoff-type games because all our games are ugly. That's what you want right now. Everybody's caught up with the fantasy football numbers and the quarterbacks throwing for 400. It'll never equate to winning in this league. When it comes to December and January, it's all about ugly wins. The weather get bad. It's 20 degrees outside. You can't throw the ball. All right, that's one thing about the Falcons. Top offense, one of the top quarterbacks in the league, throw for 300, 400, 500 yards. You have Julio Jones, arguably 1, 2, or 3 best receiver in the league. It doesn't matter when it comes to December football because it's about who can control the running game. Because the running game is offense and defense. It's a slow death on offense, and this is how it plays defense. The best way to stop Matt Ryan and Julio Jones. Have them sit on the sideline for a majority of the game. It'll shorten the game and it makes it ugly. And when I watch this Redskins team, they play good D and they run the ball and they control games.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that, Fred, because it does seem like these are two sort of competing styles of football. You have the Redskins, who are this physical team. They have one of the best run games in the league. Their passing game has not necessarily been up to par, but they have one of the best defenses in the league. You have the Falcons, who are sort of the opposite, one of the best passing games in the league. Their running game has not quite clicked this year. Their defense has really struggled. They've had some injuries, but they just really can't find ways to get off the field. Which style do you feel like is going to win? You mentioned sort of it being a playoff atmosphere. Do you feel like the Redskins style of football is going to win out this Sunday against the Falcons?
Well, really, it's more of a playoff-style offense. The offense is already in a playoff style. And the one thing about our passing game, the numbers won't blow you away, but it's what we call functional. They right on time when they need to get a first down. The one thing we know about Alex Smith, he ball over in San Francisco. He ball over now. We're one of the tops in the league in turnover ratio. We stopped Zeke Elliott, David Johnson, you can name it. Oh, Carolina, one of the top run offenses in the league. You can win year in. And will not passes the ball all regular season because passing the ball is regular season functional. When it comes to the playoffs, they bring 2-3 tight ends in, and they used to give it to LeGarrette Blount and finish games off. Philadelphia ran the ball last year when it counted, finished game running the ball. So sometimes you could pass to a detriment to your own team.
Now, the Redskins made a big move earlier this week on the trade deadline. They wound up getting Clinton Dix, the safety from Green Bay. What are your thoughts on that move?
I love it. Right now, the Redskins secondary, which is playing at a top 10 level right now in the NFL, just added the number 2 rated safety in the NFL right now by Football Focus. Guess who's number 1? Mr. DJ Swearinger. Right now, we looked at what the other people did in our division. Amari Cooper arrived in Dallas a week ago. Golden Tate arrived in Philadelphia hours ago. So guess what? We won up them by going so up a defensive backfield. So it's a little old school versus new school. Old school is we're going to stop you from scoring. Defense win championship. Offense sell tickets. The new school is offense win championships. Defense just keeps us in it. I think we're going to take a good approach to this. And the one thing I I can say about AP. While he's been good for us, when it comes to the second, third, fourth quarter, he wears people down. DBs do not like to hit him. And when this offensive line gets to pushing you around, it really takes a toll in the third and the fourth quarter, and that's real football. That's playoff football.
Now, you talk about the secondary. Josh Norman, obviously a big name in that secondary. He'll have a big challenge this weekend going up against Julio Jones as well as other DBs in that secondary, trying to keep him contained. Josh had a lot of success against Julio back in his days in Carolina, but he's faced a lot of scrutiny during his time in D.C., partially probably how much he gets paid, sort of raising the expectations for him. What are your thoughts on Josh's play this season, and how do you think he's going to handle this matchup on Sunday?
First of all, I've been one of Josh's biggest fans and hardest critics. I am a down south trash-talking cornerback, so you know I love this guy. But the one thing I can say about Josh, and it's hard for some stars to do this, is sometimes sit down, look in the mirror, and say, what can I do better? And I think where Josh found out he could do better was communicate with his teammates. They had a meeting earlier this year, man, just him and all the defensive backs and the D-linemen, man, and they just sit in there and they just talk, man, because that's what was going on with this team early in the year. I looked at the defensive backfield, which I know defensive backfield, we got to talk before the play, between the play, during the play. I noticed they wasn't talking, the connection wasn't there. I seen him rewire himself and rededicate himself and refocus himself, and right now they playing as a group. The reason Josh Norman don't got to worry about Julio, because he got DJ Swearinger, because he just got Clint Dix, because Quinn Dunbar is playing just as good as any other corner in the league right now. Fabian Monroe is doing well. They take a team approach to stopping guys. They understand if you want to stop the Falcons, they can't run the ball, they can't control the clock, they can't get us off the field. Stop Julio Jones. Make sure you put your other best corner on Ridley. Stop him from getting the catches. Make Matt Ryan hold the ball, and then we let those guys we got up front. The run, we let him bring the pain. We let Matt Ioannidis beat guys apart, and we watched John Allen establish himself as one of the best in this league. So yeah, if you're gonna play the Redskins, you got to be ready for trench warfare. And right now, what I'm seeing is a beat up offensive line for the Atlanta Falcons. What I'm seeing is a beat up defense. All three layers. All I got to say is this. I don't look at this as a trap game. I think this team has the mind frame. They got a lot to prove. I don't see no team in the league disrespected as much as the Redskins that's 5-2.
Interesting. You mentioned Calvin Ridley. What are your thoughts on sort of the rookie wide receiver so far this season?
He's a grown man. He made it into the league, 24, 25 years old. I expected to get what I'm getting from him, a guy that's getting off the bus, ready to play. He's already played big games at Alabama. He's used to playing in the Georgia Dome every year of his career for the last, 5 years, 6 years? So at the end of the day, he's a guy that's comfortable with running after the catch. He's a guy that's slippery and quick in out his cut. It's a difference between some guys that just straight line fast and can't stop. Then you meet these guys that's a mixture of fast and quick. They can get out of their cuts. He got nice hands. He's one of those guys. He's going to benefit his whole career from playing opposite of Julio Jones, his Alabama brother.
Now, you mentioned the Redskins pass rush, and you played during your time in D.C. as well as Minnesota. You played with a lot of good pass rushers, a couple of Hall of Famers. You mentioned some of these guys. Obviously, they're young, they're up and coming. So, the Hall of Fame talk certainly doesn't mix into it. But you do have some up and coming players. You got a Pro Bowler in Ryan Kerrigan. What are some of the other elements of this Redskins pass rush that you think could really give the Falcons some issues on Sunday?
Well, you know what? I always tell people this about this team. This is what I love. You usually take the identity of your leaders, and every leader on this team has been through some struggle in their life. So everybody on this team has been disrespected in one form or fashion, with people saying what they cannot do, but they continue to put out. Starting with Alex Smith. Nothing sexy about Alex Smith. All he does is win. Nothing sexy about Alex Smith. All he does is he's the top 3 quarterback in covering his bet spread since he's been starting in this league with the 49ers. Nobody respects him. He's the Rodney Dangerfield of quarterbacks. They just told before AP, he was finished 2 years ago. You can't run the ball no more, old man. You can't do this. Even Darius Geist, the guy we drafted who's not playing, they dropped in the draft, said he had character issues, no character issues, something to prove. John Allen dropped in the draft, something to prove. Josh Norman barely even drafted in the league. They told him his whole career he'll never be a starter. DJ Swearinger, the same thing. Ryan Kerrigan is top 5 in sacks in the last 5 years, not even voted top 100 player. No respect. At the end of the day, Preston Smith, no respect. Zach Brown, one of the fastest linebackers in the game, no respect. It's a common denominator on this team. They play with purpose, and they play like the rest of the league do not respect them. But I promise you, it's going to be one of the toughest pass rushes that the Falcons are going to see this year. Not because they just hungry, because they are determined to prove to the NFL that they can play with anybody.
Now, the Redskins got their own share of injuries on offense, probably the most notable being Trent Williams dealing with a thumb injury. You got Chris Thompson's dealing with a rib injury. What are your thoughts on sort of if either of those two guys miss the game? How do you think the Redskins find ways to overcome that?
The great thing here, like I said, they've been building these trenches, and we got a guy that a couple teams tried to trade for, but we end up paying him money because he's a swing guy for this league, and that's Ty Nsekhe. He's a guy that plays both tackles. He's a guy that sometimes moves to guard. He started a lot of games in the last year. See, we was where the Falcons was. The Falcons are now. Last year, we had our whole team hurt. So it's a luxury to that. Once you have your whole team hurt, them second-string guys and third-string guys get valuable time, and some of them guys are going to develop into starters. So Ty Nsekhe is a guy that we trust. Chris Thompson, he's a big mismatch that we will miss. But we do have depth here at the running back. Capri Bills is one of those guys. Every time he gets in the game, all he does is make plays. He's a guy that, fighting for a roster spot at all times. So I think the one thing this team has learned how to do over the last 2 years because of the adversity they've been in. They've learned how to get past tough times, and they've learned the next man up mentality that they just seen Philadelphia win a Super Bowl with. So it's no excuse in this division no more about people being hurt.
Now, you mentioned adversity, and I'm just curious, Fred, because the Falcons obviously got off to a rocky start this season with a 1-4 start. I know in your rookie season back in 2001, the Redskins started out 0-5. They managed to finish that season 8-8 under Marty Schottenheimer. I'm just curious, sort of taking your personal experience of coming out of the gates with a slow start and then turning it on. What were some of the things that you learned during that season? What were some of the things that maybe looking at this Falcon team they're going to have to apply if they're going to try to make a little bit of a run in the second half of this 2018 season?
And don't forget, shout out to Marty Schottenheimer on that. That was my coach at the time. He did a marvelous job with a group that we had. We couldn't really throw the ball vertically at the time. Jeff George started off our quarterback by the fourth game. Tony Banks was our quarterback. He did a lot with working with less at that time. But, LeVar Arrington made a play against the Carolina Panthers, picking it off, taking it back. We ended up winning the game. So it usually always that one play in that game you should probably not win that gets the players going, that makes the players believe. And the thing we said was no excuses. All right, no excuses. Everybody going to have injuries in this league. Everybody from the first person to the 53rd person on this roster has the ability to be a star in this league. Once we took on that approach and having leaders like Darryl Green and Bruce Smith, guys that knew how to win, guys that had been to the promised land, it made it easier for us young guys to step in line and understand, let's take it one play at a time. Let's take it one quarter at a time. Let's take it one game at a time. We're watching a couple people shatter under pressure. My guy Eli, I respect Eli, man. He's Mississippi, royalty with his family, but he's E. coli manning now because he's killing his team. He's making it hard for them to win. So first of all, you got to find out where you're not winning. And I think the Atlanta Falcons don't win because of one thing. They are into fantasy football. They're into stats. They're into compiling stats instead of going out there playing meaningful, winning football.
Now, interesting. So I take it when you hear all this talk about Julio Jones not having any touchdowns, what are your thoughts on that?
You know what? I always wondered that. And I'm a critic with Matt Ryan with that. If you told me I had a 6'3", 6'4", almost 6'5" wide receiver that runs a 4.3 that can get behind anybody vertically, and you could tell me I would have problems getting him involved in the red zone. That sounds kind of strange. I'm going to tell you what it's about. It's about the fact that Matt Ryan holds the ball, the windows close very quickly, and sometimes he doesn't have the confidence in his arm to pull the trigger. Why not? Anytime you throw a ball up to Julio Jones, it's a 50-50 ball. It's a 50-50 chance he'll catch it. It's a 50-50 chance he's going to get a penalty. At the end of the day, I never could understand, and then I thought about it. I played against T.O. at one time, and he was not effective in the red zone. They was effective in the field with Jeff Garcia at 49ers, but when they got in the red zone, Jeff did not trust his arm enough to squeeze it. See, the one thing about the red zone, it gets small. All right, though, you can't threaten DBs vertical. They don't back up no more. They don't backpedal. They react, and they break. So at the end of the day, that's not a Julio Jones thing. That's a Matt Ryan thing. And we all know what they say about Matt Ryan from time to time. He's great in the regular season, but not great in the postseason in this situational football. Well, red zone is also situational football. So is third down. Look at what he does in those things. Look at him. Judge Matt Ryan off of situational football, and you'll see what the true Matt Ryan looks like.
Okay. I'm sure that's not going to sit well with our listeners, but Fred, you're the guest.
The thing about it is, here go the key. The listeners need to know this. They got their version. I got the truth. And sometimes the truth hurts. You need to wake up and understand what you got. Well, how many yards do you think Julio Jones will have per game if he was Aaron Rodgers' wide receiver? How many yards do you think Julio Jones will have if he was Tom Brady #1 receiver? You tell me, because these quarterbacks don't even need guys that you know their name and they can dictate the game. They can dictate the game because they know how to get the ball at their hand. They're great at situational football, and they know how to end games. The big problem for the Atlanta Falcons is they can't close out a game. They ain't closed out a game since the Super Bowl. Just the longest hangover I've ever seen in my life. So I don't want what the Atlanta Falcons drinking because the hangovers last too long.
Okay. All right. Fred, that brings up a couple of questions we got from our listeners. One of them was, why do you think the Falcons have such a hard time closing out games?
Well, you would think where the coaching staff comes from in Seattle, and Seattle had a defensive mentality, also with a grind you down offensive thing. I think he inherited a pass-happy offense, and he didn't want to stop what was working. Like I said, when you look at situational football, if guys are not dropping passes, not finishing blocks, it's all about what's going on with the quarterback. The quarterback needs to understand, if I don't have the best offensive line, get the ball out of my hand as quick as possible. He has guys that can get yacked. It's a lot of receivers just make catches, but he got guys that's hard to get down. Mohamed Sanu, one of the most underrated wide receivers in the league. Never get his just due, because when you're part of the Jackson 5 and you ain't Michael Jackson, nobody cares about Tito Jackson. But Tito got a part in this thing. I think he needs to spread the wealth. You look at when y'all was winning, he was getting the ball to the backs, the tight ends, Hooper. He just getting the ball to everybody he could. Spread the ball out, because we're going to pay attention to Julio Jones. So you got to take advantage. Use them as a decoy more than they do in the open field. I think they just, I think it's a coaching thing, and I think it's a Matt Ryan thing. I think you got to take what the defense gives you sometimes.
Okay. The Falcons got an injury in the secondary. They got cornerback Robert Alford's dealing with ankle injury, and they might wind up starting a rookie in cornerback Isaiah Oliver. Another listener question we had is, what advice would you give to a rookie like Isaiah Oliver, who is going to most likely be starting his first NFL game on Sunday?
Yes, the question of rookie cornerbacks. First of all, get a lot of sleep this week, Oliver, because I promise you this, they're going to find out, can you play? One side is a proven commodity, the other side is an unproven commodity. They're going to run more than one guy at you. They're going to run 5, 6, 7 guys at you. And after we keep running you deep, they're going to make AP turn the corner 5, 6, 7 times to see, can you tackle? So guess what? We're going to know, can Oliver play the game of football after Sunday? So what I would tell him is Study. All right, first of all, if you're going to win competition, you need to mentally already know how to beat somebody pre-snap. You need to get in there. You need to understand formations. You need to understand situational football. Second, you need to be ready to run. They're going to run you out when they're not throwing the ball your way. They're going to run you out when they're coming deep your way. So I can tell you as a young DB, and nobody loves DB, it's a love-hate relationship y'all have with us. You love us one day, you hate us the next. Don't get your head down, young man. If you miss some tackles or you get caught on, keep going, have a short memory. Let that CTE help you sometimes. Short memory, forget about it, get back up, dust yourself off, and go out there and play some football.
We got another listener question from Evan Birchfield. He asks, can you compare how tough the rules are now for secondary players compared to when in the past when you were playing?
Man, it's just tough, period, to play defense now, man. We know why they did everything. It's like basketball when you can't hand check no more. How am I supposed to stay in front of Allen Iverson? How am I supposed to stay in front of Steph Curry? They handicap us and still, want us to go out there and get the job done. The NFL got just what they wanted. The most points been scored this year, the most touchdowns been scored this year compared to field goals. It's a faster paced game. They made it where they almost have taken physically the quarterback out of the game. And I understand quarterbacks sell tickets, defense win championships. But I can say this, it's a softer league because of the rules. All right, so you don't have to tackle the way we had to tackle, and you didn't have to get right back up because the concussion wasn't considered anything at this time. It's a smarter game. I think it's a DB's dream, too, because now we had teams that didn't pass but 20 times a game when I played. Now, when you go in, man, you're going to have 40 chances as a DB to make plays. And they also know you're probably going to get beat a little bit more because they throwing frequently. So I would love to play in today's NFL, and I know a lot of cornerbacks that wouldn't.
Okay. Another question we have for you from our listeners. Who's the best offensive and defensive players that you ever played with?
All right. That I played with. All right, well, here go the great thing about being a Washington Redskins. We drafted a lot of great players and traded for a lot of great players and did a lot of losing. All right, I played with so many Hall of Famers, man. When I first got here, man, walked in my first locker room, my idol, Deion Sanders, is sitting in the meeting room, Darryl Green, Champ Bailey, Mark Carrier, Sam Shade. That was my first DB room. So I'm wondering why they even drafted me at this time. So I got a chance to play with the Bruce Smiths of the world. I got a chance to play with Stephen Davis, Chris Samuels. I played with a lot of great when I went played with the Minnesota Vikings, Pat Williams, Kevin Williams, man, just guys galore. Dante Culpepper, man, it's hard for me to say, man. That's why I always tell people, it takes a lot of luck to be a Hall of Fame player. You not only got to get drafted to the right place, you got to have the right coach, and they got to keep drafting well, and it just got to be a lot of circumstances that fall in your lap. There's a lot of quarterbacks that could have got drafted and ended up at Peyton Manning if they would have got with a franchise like that instead of getting drafted by the Bengals or the Browns or something like that. So I would probably say I would rather like to glorify more the players I played against, the great players, and I guess the most dangerous offensive weapon that I probably played against was Randy Moss, man. He was double team proof. Like you couldn't even double team Randy at certain points, and we knew he was running a go route, but you still couldn't run with him. So he was a force like we have never seen at wide receiver at that time. And if I could say a defensive player that I really enjoyed, it's two of them. My first ever game as a rookie, played against San Diego. Me and LT, LaDainian Thomas, was rookies together, and Junior Seau was on that field. And, man, I promise you, Junior Seau made so many plays that day, I thought it was two of him on the defense. I'm talking about unstoppable force. I'm talking about sideline to sideline, huge specimen. And then on the other side of it, I got to say Michael Strahan. I had to go against Michael Strahan 2 times a year. I watched this man dominate. Not some offensive linemen we put in his wake, but all offensive linemen we put in his wake. So it was a privilege watching those guys from the sideline.
Okay. So, Fred, I take it you think this Redskins team is definitely poised to make a run in this NFC East. I'm curious, what are your thoughts on some of these other NFC East teams? The Falcons have to play the Cowboys in a couple of weeks. Maybe give some of our listeners a little bit of an early scouting report for that upcoming game.
Well, everybody seems to be down on the NFC East, and I tell them why. It's just one of the toughest divisions in the league, and it's always going to be like that. The season ain't how you started, it's how you finish it. And most teams besides the Giants are finishing strong right now. Nobody wants to play the Philadelphia Eagles. They just added Golden Tate. He's a run-after-catch guy. They one of the worst teams in the league with run-after-the-catch when they was one of the highest last year, so they seeking Yak. They found it. They got Carson Wentz, one of the best in the league. They're hurting right now on their offensive line. They're shuffling guys around. Lance Johnson ain't playing real well right now. So, if you can get those guys going off those edges, Vic Beasley and the rest of those guys, they got a legit chance to beat their team. But when you look at their team as a whole and what they could do on the defensive side of the ball with Fletcher Cox and Michael Bennett, that pass rush, that rotation, those DBs, you better be ready for a defensive football game. You better be ready for a game that a quarterback on the other team can match your quarterback score for score, plus they have the better D. Now, when we trade things to the Dallas Cowboys, I can tell people this about their defense. One of the best defenses I've seen this year. They first round drafted Vander Ish. I call him the Ice Giant, 6'5". He can flat out go. Jalen Smith looks like a Pro Bowler. Their defensive line with Lawrence, the rest of those guys, they can get after you for 4 quarters. They're strong on the back end. And don't forget, that offensive line is still there. Zeke the Freak is one of the best running backs in this league. You got to stop him first. They just got a new toy for that. So, it's going to be some hard games against the NFC to finish this year.
Now, Fred, you talk a lot about defense. Obviously, you played defense for a long time at a high level in this league. Are there some elements of the Falcons' defense when you look across at this team that you think they can sort of hang their hat on to try to get out of the basement in the second half of the year and start at least playing some competent defense to match up with their high-level offense?
Well, considering that they spent a lot of draft picks lately on defensive line and pass rush, you think with Vic Beasley, he's one guy that I think been up and down there that I thought drafting out of Clemson that he was going to be a bona fide, Von Miller type. If they can get him crunk up, the best thing to cure an L in secondary is to have a front four that makes it hard on quarterbacks. Quarterbacks don't make mistakes in this league until you make them uncomfortable. Whereas you see a lot of people been comfortable putting their feet on your couch in the Georgia Dome because they don't make them uncomfortable. The defensive line is getting no pass rush right now. If you want to cure the ailment of that defense, it's going to start with that defensive line. Everything starts up front. 2 things: protect Matt Ryan on offense. On defense, make quarterbacks feel bad. When they hurry up, they make bad decisions. And when you get them on their back a couple times, you don't know what that does to a quarterback. So McCaskey, the rest of those guys that's rushing up there, I don't know if Garrett playing. Is he playing this week?
He's healthy. He's ready to go.
All right, so, getting those type guys back, man, is going to help it in the long run. But I just think if those guys can't generate it with them 4 beating one-on-ones, now you got to add some linebackers to the rush. It's up to the defensive coordinators. You got to do some blitzing from the outside. You got to do some A-gap blitzing. You're going to have to mix things up and give those guys some chances to make some plays and confuse those quarterbacks.
Okay. Now, Fred, I'm curious, sort of looking around the league and looking, since you are a former cornerback guru. I remember when we had you on last time, we asked you quite a bit about what were some of your thoughts on some of the top corners in the league. I know you mentioned we talked about Jalen Ramsey last year. I'm just curious, sort of looking around the league, who are some of those cornerbacks that you like that when you're watching them play that you're fans of?
Well, first of all, I tell you all the time, if you want to go out and scout and recruit a great cornerback, you're looking for a cat burglar. You're looking for a thief. You're looking for a sinner, basically. You're looking for somebody that lie, cheats, and steal. They lie to themselves all the time and tell themselves they're the greatest, even when they just got beat for an 80-yard touchdown. They cheat. That means by any means necessary, if I can get a quick grab in there, I can read the quarterback's eyes, I can look at that tackle and see that his hand is up and y'all in pass rushing mode. Anything I can use to cheat, I'm going to do it. And the last one is stealing. At the end of the day, you pay me to be a cat burglar. You pay me to get the ball back, a la Patrick Peterson. When he get the ball in his hand, he knows what to do with it. Oh, you know, I love me some Jalen Ramsey, long, just true trash talker. You know, Boye, his running mate. You got to love this guy. He's underrated because, like I said, sometimes when you got Michael Jackson on a part of your group, nobody cares about Tito. But he's a guy that can get out there and really go get it. I've always been a Richard Sherman fan. He's almost to the back end now, though. And I tell you, a lot of one guy, a lot of people don't talk about, and that's Janoris Jenkins, a.k.a. Jet Reggie. Y'all just played him with the Giants. This guy can get the ball back at a very, very high level. And Quinn Dunbar, he's coming back for this game. Look at his metrics on Football Focus. He used to be a wide receiver. He can get the ball back. So it's so many youngsters that I really enjoy watching play the game. And it's a lot of young corners coming up in the game right now also that, you know, I think guys need to look out at and guys need to watch out for.
Now, Fred, I want to get your thoughts on sort of the rest of the league right now before we wrap things up. And I'm getting the feeling that you're looking around the league, you're seeing all this offense, but if I kind of am leaning this way, I feel like the team that's going to wind up, at the end holding the trophy at the end of the year is going to be the team that is going to be able to play the best defense come January. I'm curious, are there teams out there that you're looking at as this team is poised to maybe make a deep run this postseason and maybe catch some people by surprise?
You are correct, my friend. The best teams are the most well-rounded teams, meaning the defense got the offense back, the offense got the defense back, and special teams got all our back. So at the end of the day, this is not about the X's and O's. This is about the Jimmies and the Joes. This is about the players. Now you look at a team like Minnesota. They can play offense. They can play defense. A team in your division like the New Orleans Saints, they can put up points. They can stop you from putting up points. A team like New England, they do the same thing. They score, and they stop people from scoring. Pittsburgh, one of the top stacked defenses in the league right now. All right, they can put up points. They can stop you from scoring. Kansas City Chiefs, they can pull up hella points, and they can't really stop anybody. But they're so electrifying, and they're about to get Eric Berry back, and they're about to get Houston back. They're about to get their best defensive players back at the end of the run. Carolina Panthers coming back to your division. They can run the ball, and they play nasty on defense. So y'all already know how that steam feels. So all the well-rounded teams are going to be the teams that can run the ball, find other ways to win the game instead of just putting it on the quarterback's shoulder. And that's what the top teams in this league, they do that week in and week out.
Well, Fred, I don't know if I have much else. I think you've covered it all. It seems that you're pretty confident the Redskins will take care of business this weekend. If there's a formula for the Falcons to come out with a W, I'm curious, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I really want to be a homer on this. I can't be giving out secrets now. I can't be just giving out secrets how to beat the team. But, to make it a fair fight, what they have to understand is no excuses down there. The Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl with 10 of their starters hurt. At the end of the day, plus their starting quarterback, they have to find ways to win. And it can't be all about Matt Ryan. It has to be their running game. It has to be their defense. Special teams have to actually show up and be special. They got to win as a team. Individuality gets you nothing but a Pro Bowl. Teams, the best teams win Super Bowls, not the best players.
Okay. So, Fred, let the people know where they can find you if they want to get the same energy elsewhere on the internet and any other things that you want to plug.
Most definitely, you can follow me on Twitter, FSmoot21, Sean T. You can catch me at Team 980, that's in Washington, D.C. You can also catch me on Washington, D.C. Comcast. You can follow me on Instagram. Hey, FSmoot27, man. Thanks for the hookup, man. Thank y'all for your time.
I appreciate it, Fred. I hope we get an opportunity to do this again next year. We've now done it 2 years in a row, so I'm hoping we can get it 3 years.
We can get it done, no problem. And in the way y'all did my NFC brethren, E. coli man, in last week, that was just bad, man. That was just a shame what y'all did.
We just do what we can, Fred. We try our best. I appreciate it, Fred, and I look forward to this weekend's game and seeing what what comes. And, obviously I have a rooting interest. You have a rooting interest. We'll see who comes out on top.
All right, well, don't be scared to call me next week when we know the outcome.
Okay. All right. We'll see. We'll see.
All right.
All right, Fred. I appreciate it, man.
Hey, thanks. Thanks, brother. Thank you.
Well, guys, there it is. Fred Smoot, great guest, sharing his energy, insight into the Redskins, into the league as a whole. Appreciate him coming on, joining us. Very pro Redskins. Certainly has reason to believe so. Redskins have been a really good team. They have a great formula for what sort of tends to slow down the Falcons. Great defense, heavy run game. Those aren't areas where the Falcons have been particularly strong this year. So they'll have to come out of this bye week playing a lot better football in those areas, be a little bit more balanced on offense, and do the things that they can possibly do to win this game. Looking at the rest of the mailbag questions, we have one from Evan Birchfield. It says the percentage of chance the Falcons make the playoffs. I think mathematically they're at like 30% now. I think if they win these next three, they'll be up to like 50%. If they win two out of the next three, I think they'll be back at like 35% or something like that. I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head. But, yeah, man, the odds are not in their favor, but a couple wins over the next month of the season, or several wins, I should say, over the next month of the season. I think if they can win 3 out of their next 4, possibly 4 out of the next 4, then they'll be putting themselves in a really good position. Basically, they want to get to 8-6. If they get into 8-6 before those 2 final division games against Carolina and Tampa Bay, they're in a really good spot, I think. Definitely. So that means they have to win, 5 out of the next 7 games. And they'll have an opportunity to do that, but I do think this Redskins team is going to be one of the tougher matchups they're going to face in that 7-game span. So we'll have to see how they take care of business. If they lose this weekend, then it's going to be, they're going to basically have to go 5-1 over their next 6, and they have games like New Orleans, Dallas, Baltimore, Green Bay. So that's going to be really tough sledding. So this is a winnable game for the Falcons. It's going to be a tough matchup for the Falcons, but it's going to be definitely one that they're going to have to find a way to win. I think that's a similar question to what Brian, your homeboy Brian, was asking. His last question is, do you think the Falcons' offensive line problems are fixable this season? I think the Falcons' offensive line can get it together. Deion Jones comes back. We would be capable of beating anybody if we somehow got into playoffs. We'll see. I mean, are the offensive line problems fixable? Yeah, if certain players play better, particularly I'm looking at you, Ryan Schrader. If they can get Ryan Schrader playing at his usual level, I think they can sort of get by with sort of subpar play from the guards and Schweitzer and Garland. They were able to do that late last season. So I think if Schrader can step up his game, their issues are fixable. But you have to wonder, why is Schrader struggling? I've speculated that I think he might be dealing with an undisclosed injury. So we'll have to sort of see how that fares out. And if that's the case, then, you're not expecting that injury to get better in November or December than it was in, say, August, September. So we'll have to see. As far as the team being capable of beating anybody in the playoffs, I certainly would think if they are able to basically go on a, win 6 out of their next 8 games or whatever it is that they need to finish to make the playoffs, then I certainly would be able to buy into that line of thinking, Brian, in terms of their ability to beat anybody, because, to be able to do that against this schedule, I think would be a pretty outstanding feat and would show that this team is able to respond to adversity. That being said, though, I still probably wouldn't necessarily look at the Falcons as sort of a favorite in the NFC playoffs, but certainly a team that could be scary. Obviously, they'll we'll see who they can beat or whatever in that sort of event of that possibility. But they have some teams like Washington that play that sort of physical style of football that has often been the Achilles heel. You have Dallas, who has the capacity to be that. As Fred suggested, they have probably, a really good they have a great offensive line. They have a better defense than I think people give them credit for, particularly because of their ability to win up front. And they have athletes at that linebacker position. You have Green Bay, who obviously has Aaron Rodgers, and may not have the world's greatest defense, but certainly a good enough defense to sort of win them games. So they'll have to win a number of games. You got Baltimore, who has a great defense. You have Cleveland, who has a really good defense. You got divisional opponents: New Orleans, Tampa Bay, Carolina. We know those teams well. So the point I'm trying to bring up is the Falcons have a variety of matchups that they're going to have to be able to navigate between now and the end of the season. And should they win enough of them to make the playoffs, I think that will give you some confidence that, I do think your premise that they could beat anybody, makes a lot of sense and carries a little bit more weight. I guess the reason why I'm a little skeptical of that notion is just because we're sitting here at a 3-4 record, and it seems a little bit far-fetched to say that they're definitely going to be a playoff team, or they certainly have the possibility of being one, no doubt about it. But you need to see a little bit more. I'm a big person that says I believe it when I see it, and right now we haven't quite seen it yet, but we could certainly see it, and it starts this weekend against Washington. So there you have it, guys. That's our show for tonight. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Listen to Fred. Very animated Fred, always entertaining. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Go check him out on Twitter, as he said, F Smoot. Shanti, F Smoot 21 Shanti. And you can also find us on Twitter at Falcons PFC. I'm at Falcons Fans. Of course, if you want to send in your mailbag questions to be answered on next week's show, you can do so at the hashtag Falcons Mailbag. Of course, you want to check us out on Facebook, where we are always putting up content, including little short nuggets. And if our Facebook page is Falcons Central Radio, of course, give us a like so that you can get our updates there, as well as check us out on YouTube at Pro Football Central YouTube page. Subscribe and make sure that you hit that bell icon so that you know when we go live and whatnot. So there you have it, guys. That's our show. Appreciate it, and we're out of here.